Hello, I'm ANEKA from Made to Sew. Now in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to do a full bust adjustment with a garment that has a waist dart and also a side dart. If this is your first time doing a full bust adjustment, I recommend that you watch my original video on a bodice with only one side dart. In that video I cover the full bust adjustment in greater detail. Here I'm going to be showing you the FBA quite quickly, and then I'm going to be focusing on the differences of having that waist dart in the pattern. I also have a tutorial on what is an FBA, and I'll pop a link to that here as well. In those tutorials I discuss when you should be doing an FBA. In this tutorial I simply show you how to fix the problem with a waist dart. So let's begin. Now I've gone ahead and drawn out a pattern that has a side dart and a waist dart to show you how to do an FBA full bust adjustment here. Please feel free to draw out a pattern like this. Alternatively, you might have a pattern already in your stash that you can work on. It's great to learn these techniques so that when it comes to it, you know how to do a full bust adjustment on that pattern. This garment also has a waist seam. So we're going to begin by drawing some lines. Now the first line that we're going to draw is from the bust apex down to the waist, and majority of the time this will go straight down through that waist dart. Not always, but majority of the time. Now the next step is to draw a line from the bust apex to the notch at the armhole, or approximately the notch, 1/3 of the armhole from the underarm. Then you're going to want to have another line from the center of the side dart all the way through the dart point to the bust apex. Please work with a nice sharp pencil because my Sharpie lines are very thick and inaccurate. They're just clear for you to see. The other line that you're going to need to draw on is the seam allowance, if your pattern has a seam allowance included, at the armhole, where the line from the bust apex intersects the armhole. If your pattern doesn't have a seam allowance, then this is not required. Next, take a pair of scissors and cut from the line at the waist up through the dart to the bust apex, and then through the bust apex onto the line towards the armhole. You're going to stop when this line hits the stitching line or the seam allowance line. You're also going to cut through the side dart from the edge of the paper through the point of the dart to the bust apex, but not through the bust apex, creating a hinge there. And finally you're going to cut another line from the edge of the armhole through to the stitching line, creating a hinge. If your pattern doesn't have a seam allowance included, then you would simply cut all the way from the bust apex to, but not through, the pattern edge. And that is everything cut. Now you're going to need to decide on how much you want to add in for your full bust adjustment, and I cover this in my other tutorials. For this example, I'm going to be adding in 1.5 centimeters, 5/8 of an inch, and you're going to want to measure it from this line here. You want to draw on a parallel line, and you can see my dotted red line that I've drawn on here. Now, we're going to be adding paper in right here to create the full bust adjustment. To do that, we are going to pivot at the stitching line at the armhole. But we also want this edge of the paper that we cut up through the center of the dart to stay parallel to this line that we cut up and the center front. In order to do that, we need to open the dart, just like so. You're going to want to tape this piece down so that it can't move, and pivot and open this piece. Make sure that this edge is completely parallel to the original and therefore the center front, and the dart will open by the amount that it needs to. Then you can tape this down. Now you will notice here that by doing a full bust adjustment, the side panel here has actually become longer because of the amount that's been added into the side dart. So what we need to do is we need to position a horizontal line across this center front piece so that we can drop this piece. It doesn't really matter where you do this. From the bust apex below, it doesn't really matter. The line must be square to the center front, just like so. And we're also going to cut across that line. Now, in order to slot this piece back in, you may want to continue down your centre front edge and also continue across a line at the hem here so that you have a right angle to slot this little piece of paper back in. You must make sure that it's straight at the centre front, straight at the bottom, and everything is nice and parallel. Now you've stuck everything down, the FBA is almost complete. The final thing we need to do is to finish the side dart and also the waist dart. So how do we go about finishing those? The one tricky thing that we have here is knowing the position of the bust apex. By completing an FBA, the bust apex has moved lower and further away from the centre front than it was before. This may or may not be in the right position for you. Now, you can plot your bust apex onto the pattern here, and I do have a tutorial that shows you how to take some measurements and do that. But generally speaking, I find the easiest way is actually to make a sample garment when it comes to testing your FBA and checking the position of your bust apex and therefore where your darts need to be pointing. Now for this example, let's say we're happy with this position of our bust apex. Therefore, for the side dart, it's very simple. You can simply reconnect or continue the dart legs and reconnect them. Just like so. Now, the position the dart should be away from the bust apex does depend. It can be anything from ½ inch, 1.2 centimetres, to up to and over 2 inches or 5 centimetres. It depends on your bust. Generally speaking, the larger the bust size, the further away the dart point should be from the bust apex. But that isn't necessarily a complete rule because it depends on the shape of your bust. Therefore, that's another thing you're going to want to check when you put this into a sample garment. So for now, I have simply reconnected these side dart legs and they work and point towards this bust apex. They may be a tad close for you. So if you find you need to move them back, what you will do is find the center of the dart and pop a little mark for the center of the dart and draw that up to the bust apex. I'm going to draw this as a dotted line. Then you would measure back from the bust apex the distance that you wanted your dart to be. So say we wanted to do a 4 centimetre, which is approximately 1.5 inches. That is now the point of my dart, and then I will simply reconnect that to the original dart legs, and that has moved my dart point further away from the bust apex. Just like so. So the red dart is further away from the bust apex than the original black dart. Now let's take a look at the waist dart. Now at the waist here, because you've completed a full bust adjustment, you have actually gained some width. You need to decide whether you need this extra width to make the waist of the pattern fit you. You may do, you may not, and that's the decision you need to make depending on your measurements. So if you do not want this extra amount here, you will simply use the width of the dart legs as they are now. That will incorporate the original dart and that extra amount there. If I measure that, mine measures 5 centimetres, approximately 2 inches. However, if you decide that actually you need some of this extra amount that's been added in, otherwise you'll simply be having to grade out on the side seam, then we could reduce the dart. You could reduce the dart to what it was originally, which was approximately 3.3 centimetres, about 1.3 inches. It doesn't matter what the dart measures. The key is that you have the option to either simply use the original dart, we will then move the dart legs, or to leave the dart legs where they are. Now we need to decide where we want to position this waist dart, because if I just connected the dart legs where they originally are, they're going to be centering the dart around this line here, and that may or may not be the position of your bust apex. We said that we were happy with the bust apex in this position here. And generally speaking, I will centre my waist dart from the bust apex. So this line here, this green line, is going to be the centre of the dart. I would then decide on the width of the dart. Am I incorporating the amount that's been added in, or am I not? Let's say that we are. So that means the dart would measure 5 centimetres total, 2 inches. 2.5 centimetres or 1 inch either side of that central line. And I'm going to draw that in either side. Those are my new dart legs, just like so. Now we need to decide on the point of the dart. How close is this going to be to the bust apex? We could take a look at the original bust apex and dart point there. That distance is about 1 inch, 2.5 centimetres. You could do the same, or you could do more. Again, a larger bust size may mean that you need a greater distance. So for this example, let's say we're going to position it 3 centimetres, 1.25 inches away, just for the example. And I'm going to pop a mark there for the point of my dart. I will then simply connect the point to the dart legs, just like so. And that is the new waist dart. As I said before, if you didn't want to incorporate this extra amount in the dart, all you would do is measure a different width at the base. You would measure the width of the original dart rather than the original dart plus the extra FBA. The next step is to test this. Test this. Mark the darts and the bust apex onto your sample garment and check that on your figure. Move the bust apex if you need to. Check that the amount you've added into your FBA is correct. And then you can reposition the darts accordingly, making sure that you end the darts in the right place for your individual figure. Always remember before finishing that you need to true the darts, both the side dart and the waist dart. You're going to want to measure the dart legs, check that they measure the same on both sides, and true the base of the dart. I have a tutorial that shows you how to do this, and I'll pop a link to that here. Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial and that you now feel more confident doing full bust adjustments. Thanks for watching and see you soon.